Om Sahana Bhavato Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So in our previous class on Vedanta and the science of human possibilities, we discussed about the essential uh, nature of the spirit, the pure spirit. Man is essentially pure spirit or consciousness. Consciousness means that awareness which illuminates everything, the whole psychophysical system, body, mind, and all the samskaras and the uh, causal part of our consciousness, a causal part of of our personality is illuminated by this shining spirit. It is an ever shining spirit which does not depend on anything else uh, for it to shine. The example that was given is, suppose there is a sun and the sun passes through a window pane, and people sitting inside think that the window pane is shining, but it is shining by the light of the sun. Similarly, the spirit within, the pure consciousness, which is also known as Chit or Chaitanya, is the one pure spirit which is ever shining, and all others, including our buddhi, the higher, the subtle mind, the reactive mind, and even the body and all the objects that we see around us, everything, they get a semblance of a consciousness. Whatever little consciousness you see is the result of the reflection of the pure consciousness, which is our nature, which is our true nature, the pure spirit. So, man is essentially, the real man is the pure consciousness, and all other things which are seen, which is part of Prakriti, which we see around us and which we see within ourselves, our body, our mind, everything is living on reflected light. It is just a reflection. It is not the real sun. It is just a reflection. So you can understand now, it has a semblance of consciousness. It appears conscious, but it is really not conscious. It is just jada. The moment the consciousness goes away, in the sense when you don't feel that consciousness, or when the ever shining spirit, Atma, and the Prakriti, when they separate, then the body does not reflect that kind of consciousness. The objects that you see, it cannot be compared with light. Even sun is not a good example, because the light of the sun is also reflected. The whole pure consciousness is something different. So now the luminous self, the self which makes you know everything outside, that awareness which is within, it governs the whole psychophysical system by its Chaitanya nature, by its luminance or by its radiance. So, being composed of the purest and the finest matter, the mind has a capacity, more capacity than the body, to transmit the radiance of the luminous self to the organs and the body. So, the organs, our sense organs and the body depend on the mind, the reflected light of the mind. Like the glass which reflects the light inside the room, the objects can be seen because of the reflected light. You don't need the sun to reflect, but a part of that infinite consciousness, Chaitanya, is enough. Whatever reflection we have, that is enough to light the room. So the radiance of the luminous self passes, a small portion passes through our mind, and it serves like a sheet of glass that transmits physical light to opaque objects. The objects are opaque, so we need some transparent glass to uh, give the light. So that gives the awareness, and we think our mind is conscious. Mind is never conscious. Mind is just like matter. So the medium of Just as a window pane turns bright white if it is transmitting sunlight, or just as we gave that example yesterday, iron ball becomes a glow, becomes red, permeated by fire. So does the mind shine with the borrowed light of consciousness. So consciousness is primary. This is why the mind is very often confused with the luminous self, and the Western thinkers think that it is the mind which is conscious. But the consciousness, imbued with the consciousness, the mind serves as an instrument of the knowledge. It is an instrument of knowledge which processes the perceptions that we have. So every form of cognition, whatever we see outside, this mind is essential. The 10 organs and the physical body, the body and the 10 organs that we have, the organs of perception, receive the light of consciousness through the mind, and each according to its own nature, tinged with consciousness, more or less, the organs function. Some are more sensitive, some are less sensitive. So the organs function according, and by the connection that the mind has, the conscious mind has, the reflected, though it is reflected, it is enough to give the organs its power, and to see, the power to think, the power to see, power to smell, all the power which is there. It is the power of the pure Chaitanya inside. But since it passes through the mind, which is not a proper instrument, it just partially shares that light of consciousness. So when a person dreams during his sleep, his sense organs lose the power of perception. The motor organs also the power of action. He does not, if it is in deep sleep, if he is in dream, he may see certain things in a subtle form. But everything, the mind loses its power of volition, because consciousness temporarily recedes from the mind. When you are deep in dreamless sleep, deep sleep, which is for a fraction of the whole night, most of the whole night you do not go into dreamless or deep sleep. There is lot of dreams where you are partially consciousness. That means the mind is still active. If only when you get deep sleep, the mind gets total rest. That is why sleep is so necessary. All the mental operations cease when you are in deep sleep, because the consciousness of which is there, the Chaitanya, recedes from the mind altogether. So that is a proof that mind is conscious only if the Chaitanya enters into it. If it withdraws, then the mind does not see anything and it sleeps. Even egoism drops. The incessant fluctuations of the mind, which constantly make it restless when it is waking or even when it is dreaming, all the restlessness goes and the mind is lulled completely. It becomes dull and it gets a kind of peace. But still, the involuntary bodily functions such as the respiration, digestion, assimilation of food, which are associated with the autonomous nervous system in the body, they continue. How do they run? They don't run due to consciousness. They run through the partial consciousness that is shining through the prana. So we have the body, we have the prana, we have the mind, which is finer than the prana. So this prana keeps awake and guards the body like a watchman. So this prana sees that the heart does not stop. All the other things like digestion, all the autonomous nervous system, it gets some kind of conscious energy because of the prana. So prana is so important. It doesn't, of course, happen when the body is dead. But when a body is asleep, the difference between a dead body and a sleeping person is almost the same. The mind is not active, but the prana itself keeps this autonomous nervous system active, and it does not allow. That is why when you go into samadhi, they say in 21 days the body falls off, because the prana no longer transmits that consciousness to the autonomous nervous system. When that happens, the body just falls off. So this we have to remember. What is Chaitanya? What is uh, Jada? What is Prakriti? Everything else, the body, the sense organs, the uh, the dream self and all the things that you see in the dream, everything, though it may be subtle, the waves of the mind, the thoughts that we have, everything is jada. They just keep on changing. And only the luminous self or the awareness, which whenever it wants, it passes through the mind, whenever it wants, it passes through the prana and keeps the body alive, and whenever it decides, the it withdraws the prana from the body. But a little bit of samskaras, the Udanavayu, we'll discuss about that later on. It is a very interesting topic. We will discuss about it. That remains and that keeps the subtle body alive. Though the gross body goes away, the subtle body is kept alive. So the luminous self keeps prana operative. Prana is always working throughout the day, in waking, dream, and deep sleep as well. Prana does not stop even in deep sleep. The mind may stop, but the prana doesn't stop. So it is illumined by the light of consciousness of the Atman. It is its very self, the vital principle function. So the Atman or the pure consciousness, because it animates, because it illumines the prana, it keeps the body alive. So that is why the whole the Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, just as one sun lights up the entire world, so the one self, the consciousness abiding in the psychophysical system, illumines the whole psychophysical domain, our body, our organs. Now the goal of spiritual life, that is where all our sadhana, the mantra that we do, the karma yoga that we do, the bhakti that we do, everything is meant for only one purpose: how to find our real self. If that is not the goal, all sadhana becomes useless, all upasana becomes useless. The main purpose should be remembered. Why do we do sadhana? Why are we harping so much on spirituality and spiritual practices? Only for one reason. There cannot be two reasons. There is only one and one reason, that the knowing self is the sole ruler of this psychophysical organism that we have. Our body, it may be healthy, it may be sick, it may be strong, it may be weak. The mind may be strong, mind may be weak. Everything changes. Everything changes, and depending on the chaitanya that percolates through the mind. If it percolates properly, the mind is sharp, mind is full of buddhi. If sattva predominates, if the glass is very clear, the light is very clear inside the room. If the glass is tinted, if it is tamasic or rajasic, the light is very dark. You can't see things properly. Our perception becomes so. The ears hear, the eyes see, the mouth speaks, the hands work because of this ruler. And to reach that Paramatma, or to reach that Ishvara, or to reach that Brahman, which is of the nature of pure consciousness, is the one and only goal of our spiritual sadhana. Then and then only are we totally free, when we separate this consciousness, when we realize that we are the conscious principle, we are not the changing principle. However nice it may be, however beautiful the body may be, however beautiful the mind may be, all these things that you see are temporary and will be snatched away. Prakriti has its own jati, ayu, and bhoga. As I told you in the uh, Raj Yoga, which we discuss on Friday, this idea of jati, ayu, and bhoga. Jati means the species in which we will be born, whether we'll be born as a male or a female, or whatever be the species we are born as. That ayu, that is the lifespan, and bhoga, the experiences that we are going to have, is all stored in the karmashaya, and that is also illumined by this chaitanya. So who is experiencing all these things? It is the chaitanya. So the goal is, before we die again, and before that is why they say moksha is the highest goal. We can have dharma, we can have artha and kama balance using dharma. That is partial possibilities. We are exploring only partially the possibilities that we have. Those are also possibilities, but it is the wrong use of that consciousness. If that consciousness, it is like, suppose you have a very dark glass. That consciousness is not fully reflected. You don't make full use of the sun, the light which is there. You put all the covers, cover the glass panes, make it dull. That is not the purpose. The purpose is to open the window, or or at least have the glass fully transparent, fully sattvic, so that more and more light illumines the whole. Then things become very clear. It is not just light, physical light, it is our understanding becomes more and more clear. So the goal of life can be only one: how to see that the maximum light of consciousness is suffused, is passes through our body mind complex, and before we die, we have to see that we identify ourselves, recognize ourselves as pure consciousness. Then only all the fears, then only all the limitations, then only all the jati, ayu and bhoga, that fear that how long will I live, how nicely will I live, what will be my experiences, all this uncertainty goes. So our Vedic rishis and uh, the goal of Vedanta is to understand who we really are, the real man within us, the real human being which is within us. That is the greatest possibility. Other possibilities are there. So, if that is the reason why we do sadhana or do the mantra and do all the spiritual practices, then only it is of use. The mantra or the sadhana that we do, japa that we do, if it is used for other purposes, then it is like using the light for uh, purposes which are not good. We want to use that light when it is available, the sunlight, as they say, make hay while the sun shines. But if you just while your time away, then you are not making full use of that sun. So also this Chaitanya, it is diluted as we become grosser and grosser. The more gross we become, the more tamas is there, that Chaitanya goes on fading. And again we have to be born, jati, ayu and bhoga, the experiences. Again and again we'll have those sorrowful experiences. And the grosser we are, the more sorrow we have. The more tamasic we are, the more sattvic our mind, the more light will be reflected, and will be nearer to that supreme self. That is the whole goal. So that is the basically the idea behind the luminous self. Now, according to Vedanta, as we know, as we observed here, the real nature of man is consciousness or chaitanya. That is the real nature. So we are, then what are we? What is our individuality? If we are pure Chaitanya, why are we looking at ourselves as limited beings? So we are like waves with foam or bubbles in the ocean of consciousness. Another example that is given is that this ocean of consciousness, we are just waves. Now, presently, we are in such a state that each one of us is identified with the wave and foam of the ocean of consciousness, like small waves. The whole ocean is vast, the ocean of consciousness. I mean, don't take it physically. But suppose in that wave of consciousness, one wave says, I am the ocean. People will laugh at that apparent self. That apparent self, it may be a huge wave, and it may think it is a huge wave, it will gobble all the smaller waves. Just like people with lot of ego, they think they can dominate other people. But there is a limit. No matter how big the wave, it may be a tidal wave, it may destroy all the smaller waves, but still, compared to the ocean, it is nothing. So, if presently we are confusing ourselves, we think we are these waves, not knowing that this huge wave, however big it may be, one day it will collapse and be part of the ocean. So, each wave, as it were, is looking at the other wave. In this ocean of consciousness, a little consciousness, we have more consciousness, and we think we are wiser than other people. And they see themselves as separate from the objective world, some weaker people. And the whole objective world, which is ever active during processes of creation, sustenance, and destruction. We see waves are Huge waves are coming, gobbling up smaller waves, they're getting destroyed. The waves stay for some time. It is not that the wave immediately collapses, it stays a big wave for a long time and then it again merges. So we see the same drama. Every time the wave thinks I am now going to be a huge wave, and it wants to remain that wave, but unfortunately the biggest wave also collapses. So the consciousness, the ocean is very active. The ocean doesn't change. The creations of the wave, the maintenance of that huge wave, and finally destruction of that wave, the ocean of Satchidananda is the same. So that consciousness does not change. So that is why behind every wave we have to understand it is the same ocean of consciousness, Satchidananda, where the wave is a mere appearance. And if we hold on to the appearance, we will be sad, because the biggest wave also one day will collapse. And with that comes the fear. The wave thinks, oh, now I'm huge now. It wants to remain huge. But a day will come when that wave will collapse, and then it will become sad. It is afraid of merging into the ocean, though it should not be afraid, because it becomes big like the whole ocean. It becomes infinitely bigger. So ocean alone, that is the logic which is given, that the consciousness alone is real and eternal. All waves, all foams and bubbles that we see in the ocean are manifestation of that one ocean. Apart from that ocean, nothing exists. If we sink within ourselves, how to see that ocean, how to realize that we are the ocean? By not by creating bigger and bigger waves, not by expanding our ego, thinking that I am a big wave. Another big wave comes and just gives us a slap and we collapse. That is not what the goal of life is. So if we sink within ourselves, then it is like the wave trying to find out that, oh, it is such a big ocean. There is neither wave nor activity. If you go below, going within means trying to find the spiritual heart. Why do we meditate within? It is like the wave trying to sink into the bottom. In the bottom of the ocean, it is all one big ocean. You don't see. It is all part of the one ocean, whether it is a Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, all the waters of all the oceans are connected. So there is one homogeneous, non-dual existence or pure consciousness, which is known as Chit. Sat, that is existence, Chit, that is pure consciousness. As long as we are aware that we are waves, there is a rise and there is a fall. You can't complain. If we think we are the waves, we'll be happy when we rise, but we'll be very unhappy when we fall and then we collapse. We don't want to collapse. Appearance, disappearance, meeting people, parting from people. These dualities which happen, rising, falling, invariably bring sukha and dukkha. So man is tossed between joys and sorrows. He is sometimes tortured, sometimes he is joyful. For, uh, Not that he will always be joyful, there will be painful situations. So the man is tossed just when you are at the surface. When we don't explore our human possibilities, we don't go deep inside the ocean, we don't see that calm. If we are on the surface of the ocean, we will see the big waves coming and we do surfing. In surfing, sometimes you are gobbled by the big waves, and sometimes small waves come, you are very happy. A big wave comes and uh, it completely, you fall down. When we are surfing and doing many things, there are sports which you see, the big waves come, sometimes it is a challenge to maintain your balance. It comes and simply slaps you and then you fall down. So, but the more we go deeper, the more we retreat, the more we see the world as one homogeneous consciousness. That is what spirituality is. Why do we go in? Why do we meditate? Why do we repeat the mantra? Because it follows the reverse process. Mantra from pure consciousness, it is known as Shabda Brahman. The sound came, sound from sound, the whole Prakriti came. So mantra is the reverse process. The the process by which we became many, we became big waves, we became small waves, and we came out of that deep ocean and waves were formed. Following the reverse process, from big wave or small wave, we the consciousness that manifested itself as sound, we use the same sound to go back. The creation, they say, Shabda Brahman or Om, the word Om. That is why Om is a indistinguishable part, or you may say a compulsory part of all mantras. They start with Om because creation began with Om. That is the great theory. The It is known as Shabda Brahman, the word Om, because it is it U and Ma. It it comprises, it uh, takes care of all the words. Take any word, uh, it all the three parts of the sound reproduction system in our from the throat, then to the palate and the lips. U and Ma, everything is covered. They are all other words, all other mantras, all other language that we speak, the songs that we sing are combinations of U and Ma. That is why the least common multiple, which we say LCM, that is what is known as Om. So that pure consciousness, actually, the pure consciousness manifests first as sound. And that's why we use the sound of the mantra to go back and reach that pure consciousness. We have to go deep to try to find the ocean, try to find the calm ocean. You do diving inside. If you are at the surface, you will be tossed here and there. But the more you go, the more calm you become. So our minds, all the joys and sorrows, tortures and elation, the happiness and sorrow, everything level gets leveled down when we go inside the sea. So also when we go, try to identify ourselves with the consciousness, pure consciousness, all that name and form which confused us, which made us, which were tossing us between joys and sorrows, the smaller waves sometimes becoming big, the bigger waves breaking down into small waves. This continuous drama, or the waves which are creating so much commotion on the surface of the ocean and making us so miserable, that can be avoided when we go deep within. That is the idea. So to reach the core, we have to take recourse to the principle that has caused the manifestation of consciousness as matter. Consciousness became the Shabda. The Shabda in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So the word, Jesus also says the same thing. The Bible also repeats the same thing. So in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So from God alone, the Shabda Brahman comes, the whole name and form, the universe. Every object that we see has a name and a form. So using that principle, we take the name of the Lord, go the mantra yoga that we practice takes us on a reverse path and takes us to that depth of pure consciousness. So first we come out of that pure consciousness. How that happens, that has been explained. That has to be understood before even we try to understand what this mantra shastra, what mantras do. That is the real significance of japa or mantra yoga. So this individual consciousness, which is part of the infinite consciousness, this jivatma and paramatma, the soul and the God, the creation of this universe is the cyclic process of matter and beings, which are manifesting from their causal form. We have a Karana Sharira, then we have the Sukshma Sharira, we have the Stula Sharira, we are born. So matter and beings, they come from their deep causal form to their gross form, and again we go back to that causal form and then become the spirit. So this ultimate reality, which is the spirit, which is the pure Chaitanya or consciousness, out of which by the power, the Shakti, that is why Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is the pure consciousness. We celebrated Shivaratri. Shiva, the principle of Shiva is the light of pure consciousness. And the very idea of Shivratri is to reach that Shiva state where we identify ourselves with the pure conscious. That is the main idea. That in that darkness you light the lamp, you do Havana, you do all sorts of rituals. So Shivratri now has been reduced to just a simple fasting and eating certain things or not eating certain things and keeping vigil. The idea somebody asked yesterday, why should we stay awake? That means the pure consciousness. We have to remind ourselves. Shivratri is a reminder that to not to lose your consciousness, to be always aware of that consciousness is the goal of life. And Shivratri, at least on one day, we stay awake, we stay, uh, we try to be as conscious as possible. Don't allow ourselves to uh, trivialize our consciousness by dreaming and then deep sleep and other things. So, that pure consciousness, by its power or Shakti, mind and matter comes. First the mind comes, then the matter comes. Spirit is one. There are no degrees or differences in it. The spirit which is in uh, uh, the spirit which is in man is the spirit that is in everybody. As ocean we are one, as waves we are different. That we have to remember. As ocean we are one. When we go down, that consciousness, that real man, the pure consciousness, you can't say Shiva and Jiva become one. But and which as the object of worship, the big wave or is the Lord or Ishvara. When you consider Ishvara, it is also a manifestation. We are small waves and we worship the big wave, and we try to go to the source to find out what that real big wave is. And when we merge into that, go deeper within that same uh, God whom we worship, Ishvara, we find that there is hardly any difference. Behind the wave and behind the small wave and the big wave is the same ocean, that is Brahman. That is what is the goal of all our sadhana. According to Vedanta, mind and matter exhibit diversity. You see, every mind is different, matter is different, so many varieties you see, and are of various degrees and qualities, depending on which guna is predominant. A tamasic man, tamasic mind, tamasic body, a mixture of tamas and rajas. Some people are rajasic, we say it is highly active, and then some people are sattvic, they are full of wisdom, their mind is steady, their mind is not restless. The If the mind is dull, it is tamas. If the mind is steady but not dull, then it is sattva. And in between it is rajas. When it is vibrating, when it is restless, when waves are created one after another, it's so a turbulent sea. It's absolutely turbulent sea when there is too much of rajas. That's why when the ocean there are big waves, we call it, it's very difficult to have peace. A boat becomes restless, a boat sinks if the ocean is turbulent. But we would expect a calm uh, waters when the waves subside. So it's a continuum. Now, matter is nothing. All this diversity, matter is the grosser aspect of the mind. This you have to remember. In Vedanta, very clearly they say mind is just fine matter. It is so subtle that it looks as if it is controlling, because the subtle always controls the gross. So matter is the grosser aspect of the mind, or mind is the subtler aspect of matter. So there is matter and the subtler aspect is mind. The mind gives reality to matter. It is a continuum. There is a connection between mind and matter, matter and mind, and that is known as Prakriti. Prakriti is made of matter and mind. Mind, what does mind do? It limits our consciousness. The infinite consciousness is limited by the mind, which is like a wave. When a little part of the ocean is taken and a big wave is formed, it is like the mind. Our mind takes that infinite consciousness and gives it a name and form, and we think we are limited. Either we are intelligent, we are less intelligent, we are highly intelligent. So there is no mind, or in fact anything in the universe, that is without consciousness as the background. So at the substratum is the ocean. You can't imagine a wave without an ocean. So also you cannot imagine a mind or a body which is gross mind only, without that consciousness as the substratum. It's the background of everything. The supreme consciousness, that is why, cannot be limited or grasped by the mind. That is why it is known as amanaha. Amanaha means that which is not the mind. The moment you say mind, your possibility is limited. Then you have the idea of strong mind, weak mind, dull mind, stupid mind. So the minds are nothing but objects. They are like subtle objects. The gross objects, you can say it's a big elephant, a small elephant, or a big animal, a small animal. That is gross. But a big mind, a small mind, they are also relative. So you cannot limit. If you limit the consciousness with the mind, then it becomes small. It is not infinite. So if there is no mind, there is no limitation. So that is why it is known as amanaha, that which cannot be grasped, understood by the mind. So pure or supreme consciousness, which is there, which is the ocean, the deep ocean below, remaining itself in one aspect, unchanged, changes it in its other aspect as the active power or Shakti, which manifests as body or mind. So that is one of the greatest secrets you have to understand. The relationship between Prakriti and Purusha, between Shiva and Shakti. Does Shakti come? Is it a separate entity? No, Advaita or even Tantras say Shakti is the other aspect, the active power aspect of the Purusha. So when the consciousness itself manifests as manaha, buddhi, ahankara, chitta, and all those things. So Shankaracharya's famous verse is there, mano, buddhi, ahankara, chittani naha. I am not that, because I don't want to confuse the Shakti with the active power with the pure consciousness. I don't want manifestation because I know it is full of dukkha, full of sorrow. So the moment we become limited by mind and body, we suffer. And the goal of mantra yoga, to repeat the mantra, is use the same sound root. The sound brought us to this existence, Om, or the primordial sound, as they say, Shabda Brahman, or the Anahata Dhvani, which manifests itself externally as Om. When we repeat it, Om, that is not the real Om. The silence after that, as Sri Ramakrishna said, when you ring a bell, Tom or Om, after that there is a silence. That is the unuttered sound. The unuttered sound of pure consciousness, the Anahata. So Anahata means not struck. It has not been produced by mouth. The Om that we are, that is why when we are given the mantra, we repeat it mentally. We don't repeat it loudly. We want to make it as subtle as possible. And when the mental repetition goes on, we follow the same route. We start with the gross sound, with the gross mantra which we hear, which is packed with power. It goes back the same route it came out, and then we reach the ocean. So man can be understood, the real nature of man. If you want to understand all the human possibility, the real nature of man can thus be understood as pure consciousness or chit. Apparently, that pure consciousness is limited by its own power, which is known as Shakti, as mind and body. So that power in Vedanta is known as Maya. So Maya is that power. So all the bijas which are there, which helps us to destroy this Maya. So there is a bija for Maya. This Maya which apparently limits the pure consciousness and makes it appear as Shakti. As the Shakti means Prakriti or mind and body. So Maya is that part of the power that severes, that disconnects the united consciousness so that the object can be seen other than the self. And then it multiplies, splits into multifarious objects, multifarious minds, the same Brahman, and is seen other than the self. And this Maya is what creates the subject-object differentiation. In that one indivisible whole, which is pure, infinite, or undivided, Akhanda Satchidananda. That is why Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Akhanda Satchidananda means indivisible self. But how has it become divisible? Because of Maya, because of the apparent limitation of the mind and body which has come out, as it were, that power of Brahman, which is Shakti. So Sri Ramakrishna said, Shakti is the power of Brahman, Prakriti or Shakti is the power of Brahman. So Maya is that power or Shakti which creates the subject object difference. Earlier it was all one ocean, but suddenly the waves rise. So there is a beautiful song in Bengali written by Swami Premeshananda, and Swami Shivananji or Mahapurush Maharaj liked it very much. Uh, it is known as Arupa Sayare Leela Lahari. Lahari means the waves. Arupa means formless ocean. On a formless ocean, suddenly the incarnation comes as a big wave. Leela, the Leela of the Lord. Arupa Shayare, Leela Lahari. And there's a very big song showing how the Lord performs his Leela and shows the way to uh, dive deep in the ocean of unconscious, the undivided ocean of consciousness. That is what the big wave shows. It shows the incarnation comes with full glory, and that Brahman becomes, as it were, condensed into Ishvara, the universal mind, and teaches us how to get rid of Maya and become one with that Brahman. That is the whole gist of sadhana. So our Ishta is like this Satchidananda Brahman, whose real nature we are trying to find out, and we use the mantra as a means, because through sound we came out, through sound we go back to our original source. That is the essence of entire sadhana. Sadhana or upasana means only that. The only purpose of doing sadhana or doing any kind of yoga is to go back to our original source, which is known as undivided Brahman. Because of Maya, we have created all this trouble, all this restlessness. The ocean was very calm. Some power came, that strange power of Maya caused all these waves and oceans and different waves and bubbles and foam, everything, and as if it appeared like a big chaos. Our life is like that. Our life is a very, very big chaos. The more we identify ourselves with the body and the mind, it the chaos increases, it doesn't decrease. So the essence of spirituality is to reduce the chaos first. First reduce the chaos and try to reduce the restlessness both of the body and the mind, subdue the waves, and then you can see the ocean below, and then you can enjoy total peace, bliss, or whatever it is, the bliss of Brahman, as they say. The seers of the Vedic or Hindu tradition, which includes tantras and other scriptures, all say the same thing in different languages. What Vedanta says, the same thing Tantra says. Vedanta says Brahman and Maya, the Tantra say Shiva and Shakti, and Sankhya say Purusha and Prakriti. It is the same thing. The same consciousness manifesting itself as the gross universe. That is the explanation which Hindus gave. So they discovered that this great Shakti or power or great energy is the source of creation. It manifests as Nada, the sound, Prana, that is the prana within, the vital force, Shabda, the words that we utter, the mantras that we utter. They are all synonyms of that great cosmic energy or Prakriti. This consciousness cannot be known through ordinary mind. This we have to remember. This consciousness that we speak of cannot be known through an ordinary mind. The ordinary mind can see objects, can be very intelligent, can make a relative study of the different objects, how to use the wonderful objects. But there is a limit to that reactive mind. Reactive mind can be very intelligent, but it can't solve the fundamental sorrow or fundamental problem of life, that is eternal life. It cannot solve the problem of death. So this reactive mind, however intelligent it may be, has a time frame. It has a ayu, jati, ayu, and bhoga. If if one is born as a autistic or some kind of mental deformity, his jati, he cannot that idea that the person who is born with a smaller ayu, a smaller lifespan, or he is born in a species which is detrimental to spiritual progress, and also is because of his karma, he is a person is born like that. So jati, ayu, and bhoga, the experiences that he will undergo, the good experiences, the bad experiences, and all those things which a uh, a person is born is because of his past karma. So the if one is lucky, then he tries to uh, realize uh, that pure consciousness before he passes away. That is the idea behind mukti, that we are no doubt victims of this maya, and as victims we are undergoing sorrow, joys, and because of our relative existence. So but there is a hope that if we reach the source from which we came, before our gross body dies, because otherwise we'll have to wait for another psychophysical organism, another jiva. We have to be born with another body. So human birth is so difficult. So the highest possibilities can be explored if we try to realize that realize that pure consciousness before we die. So that is why Sri Ramakrishna blessed everybody by saying Tomader Chaitanya Hok. What did he mean? That you realize your consciousness before you die. That is the highest gift I can give you. The highest uh, purpose of life or the goal of life. If all other lesser goals will make you transmigrate into this cycle of maya, this nada, this prana, shabda, and then all this restlessness, all these waves, constantly created waves, big waves, small waves, they will come, and you will not understand the pure consciousness, or you will not touch that pure consciousness which gives you eternal peace or eternal joy. So we have to develop a special kind of mind. Now that we will discuss. Some of you, as you know, we have a special class for some people who have been initiated or would like to understand what mantra diksha is, from 8:30 to 9:15 today and tomorrow, on the same link. Those who are interested, they can join. There, the exact purpose, the reason why uh, spiritual initiation or mantra, how it works, how it helps us. It is not the only way. There are other ways, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and other things. But it helps us to reach a something deep within, which is known as buddhi, heart, or dhi. In Gita, it is known as dhiyo yona. In the Gayatri mantra also it is there. Om bhur bhuvasvaha tat savitur varenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi. That dhi, please awaken. That is the goal of all mantras. The Mahanarayana Upanishad or Shvetashvatara Upanishad, the Kathopanishad, everywhere they talk of this subtle heart within. The heart, the Divya Chakshu, or the divine vision which enables you. It is known as a subtle or spiritual mind, the buddhi or the heart, the spiritual heart. So this consciousness can be perceived the by going within. Just as when you are floating on the surface, when you are the waves of the world are tossing you here and there, then there is no rest. It is only when you dive deep. How to dive deep? By opening your buddhi. That is the first thing which sadhana does. A sadhaka, the first target of doing japa or doing mantra or doing meditation is to awaken the spiritual heart. Only when that is there, that consciousness can be perceived, can be experienced. It cannot be experienced through the gross mind or through the reactive mind. It cannot be seen through the senses. Neither through the body can experience it. That is the problem. All other objects you can experience through the body. You can see, you can hear, you can smell. But this is something which has to be perceived only by the spiritual mind or buddhi. the Vijnanamay Kosha as it is known. So the only the development or the awakening of the Buddhi is the only goal of spiritual life or of repeating the mantra. It cannot do anything beyond that. The concentration that you get may be used for developing your skills, the concentration that comes as a byproduct of repeating the mantra, but that will be trivializing its use. If it's like you have a very big I mean, you go to a king and the king ask for anything you want, and you ask for some pumpkins, Sri Ramakrishna used to say. It is just like that. Having taken spiritual initiation or having taken spiritual life seriously, then before we die, before we take up our karmashaya, makes us be born into another body which may not be conducive to spiritual life. The goal of life is to try to achieve that consciousness even while living, to achieve Jivan Mukti. And how to do it, we will be discussing in the 8:30 class today and tomorrow, which will give us a rough idea, because many people were asking uh, what does mantra does, what is spiritual initiation, why should it be taken, if at all somebody wants to take. If there is any other goal in mind, let it be clear that it is not going to help in any way. This spiritual initiation will not help us anyway in dealing with the troublesome. I mean, it will help us in the sense that you touch the consciousness, you touch the bottom of the ocean. The more you touch, the more peaceful and the more blissful you will be. But it will not help us to create bigger waves or smaller waves if we want a life of restlessness, a gross life. It will be of no use for. That is not the purpose. It is a reverse process that one has to be very clear in one's mind, that the process by which we achieve excellence in the external world is from inside out, whereas the process by which we achieve spiritual excellence is the reverse process, outside in. That is why the tantras say that from the supreme Brahman or pure consciousness, which was peaceful, which was blissful, Satchit and Ananda, full of Ananda, it became limited. Shiva, and there is a beautiful song by the Gujarati poet Narsim Mehta. He says, you were Shiva, your real nature was Shiva, that is pure consciousness. Shiva thaki jiva thayo, means you became a jiva. You became a limited being. Don't you pity yourself? That is the beautiful song. Narsim Mehta experienced that bliss of Brahman. Then he says, what a stupid thing I did. I was Shiva and I became this jiva. That is the wonderful message of Shivaratri, that we are born, our real nature is Shiva, and we forget that and become Jiva and then cry and then do all sorts of, uh, our mind becomes restless, agitated, sorrow comes, and so many problems come. Then the real desire to go back to that original source is what is known as spiritual life. So, through sound, through uh, inappropriate sound, through nama and rupa, which brought this universe. That is what Vedanta says. Nama rupa gives rise to this universe, and if we get involved in more and more nama rupa, that is, get more and more involved in the world, then it is not conducive to spiritual life. So the mantra, what it does, it creates a very powerful wave and enables it to go back, provided we want to go back. If we still want to play, if we still want to be tossed, and we are not done with the surface, the sea, the games that we play, then it is of no use. But mantra diksha will be just, the effort will be wasted, because it is exactly the opposite of what we do to have a life of creativity and life of the gross life that we live. It has to follow the exact opposite path. So if we are prepared to do that, then only spiritual sadhana or upasana, it is known as upasana, trying to be as close as to the consciousness which is undisturbed, trying to dive deep within trying to find the spiritual heart, the spiritual mind. It is actually not the heart, it is also known as the spiritual mind. That aspect of the mind which reflects the akhanda consciousness, the pure consciousness, which gives total joy, total bliss, and great security, great mukti is nothing but nirvana, whether you call it nirvana, mukti, salvation, and all those things. These are the paths shown by these great Vedantins and all the religions of the world. They have the same core principles of Vedanta, which says that the awakening of the buddhi, awakening of the spiritual heart, is gives us the first glimpse of this consciousness. And once we get that, then spiritual life has meaning in our life. So the need of the higher faculty, it's the spirituality doesn't come in a day. The deity won't simply come. There are cases, of course, by the grace of the Lord, the spiritual heart immediately opens. But that is very, very rare. Unless one has done lot of good samskaras, one realizes the spiritual heart within by the grace of the Guru or grace of the Ishta. The Ishta just shines. But he illumines, he clears all the doubts. But for most of us, it is a very, very painful process. It's a retracting back, going back the same way we came out. And we came out from the bottom of the ocean, got tossed up here and there in the ocean, the surface of the ocean. Then we realized it's not a very happy place. This ocean, which is full of turbulence, full of restlessness, where we lose our balance. Then we decided, no, let us go back. Let us go back to the depth of the ocean from where we came. The bubbles came out. The bubbles came from the bottom of the ocean. It came and it burst and it was disturbed. Then it thought, no, let me be one with the ocean. That is exactly what spiritual life does. That is exactly what spiritual initiation means, mantra diksha means. That is one of the ways to go back to the source. Going back to the source. There is a beautiful book by Swami Vivekananda, a compilation on Swami Vivekananda's teachings, compilation of Swami Vivekananda's teachings, which is known as Going Back to the Source. It's a beautiful compilation, nicely divided into different topics. So that is what we should aim to go back to the source. That is the only thing that spiritual initiation will do for us. So we will meet at 8:30. I'll take a little rest. I'll see if there are some questions to be answered. Otherwise, you can attend the 8:30 session. Yeah. The link is same. Somebody has asked if the link will be sent. So before that, I'll answer one question. The link is same. The same link which you use now. If you click, I will let you in. But I will make sure that those who are interested, I mean unknown people, those who are already there on the mailing list, it will be better if they attend. And those who have taken Diksha, it would be preferable if they attend, or those who like to have this Upasana Paddhati or Mantra Diksha as it is known. It is one of the methods, let me make it very clear. It's not essential for spiritual life, but it is one of the most important ways and the easiest way, according to Holy Mother, to reach the source, going back to the source. So if we want to know about that, in two talks, today at 8:30 and tomorrow also at 8:30, we will discuss it in two parts. We will not complete it. It will be 45 minutes. So those, if you are not tired, you can attend that. There is one question. If Shiva is the light of pure consciousness, is Mother Kali a reflection or the same? Mother Kali is the same. As I told you, the Shiva Shakti are abhed. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, they cannot be different. The avyakta, the prakriti, which is known as avyakta prakriti. Prakriti is also known as avyakta. When it is not manifest, it is one with Shiva. So that which is Shiva is also Kali. Kali is the other aspect, the active aspect of Shiva. So we have to take the help of Maya or Shakti. That is what the Bija is all about. The whole Bija is a represent, it's either a Bija of Kali or Bija of Any Shakti, Durga or Maya or any other Bija, Bija is always of Shakti. It is the Bija which helps us to change our gear and go back, to reverse the process which we have created a mess by coming out. Now how to go down? We have to reverse the process, and that is done by the Bija. So Shiva and Shakti are the same. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Yeah, consciousness, Chaitanya, and Turiya. Turiya is a state, the state where you reach pure consciousness. They are the same. So that is the question. Consciousness, they are all different names. Chetana, Chaitanya, consciousness, or knowledge. Swamiji has used the word knowledge, pure knowledge, not the secular knowledge. And Turiya is a state which is beyond the three states of, that is, when you go beyond the gross, subtle, and the causal state, you reach a state which is known as Turiya, which is the state of pure consciousness. So it is all the same.